Hi guys, welcome to Mix and Shot channel. I'm Rafa and today we're gonna have a look at the new Zhiyun gimbal, the Weebill. Let's start with unpacking. So this was a quick unboxing because I lost part of the footage. My mistake, I basically copied the video files back to my computer and I didn't realize that I was actually overwriting. So after this quick unboxing, let's dig into the feature of the Weebill gimbal from Zhiyun. So here I have a Sony A7Riii mounted on it and it's perfect for this gimbal. It's mainly thought for mirrorless cameras. We still can mount some DSLR cameras that are not too big on it, but this camera is really perfect on it. So let's see how to balance the camera on this gimbal. I'm gonna unmount the camera from it to show you from the beginning. So the camera plate is actually split in two parts. I'm gonna screw here to actually show you. This part here is ArcAsvis compatible, so we can basically keep this plate and we can mount the camera with this on a standard ArcAsvis tripod head that I typically use. So it's a good thing that if I'm using it on the gimbal, I don't have to unmount everything. I can just detach from the gimbal and just use it on my tripod head. This part can actually stay mounted and we can remove it on the fly. If we have a particularly heavy lens, we can use this component here in front, in the frontal part of the plate, and we can screw basically to support the lens. In this case, it's not needed. This lens is very light and also actually mounting this is going to block the focus ring. If we have a lens that is particularly bigger than the bottom of the camera, let's say, we can add this socket here. This will go on the camera before mounting this longer plate. Very nice feature of the Weebill is that every axe is actually locked and we have single controls for each of them. So with this one we control this axe, this one, and this one. And it's very cool that Zhiyun did this because it's much easier to balance the gimbal properly. So how to do this? We actually start unlocking the first one and we search the position back and forth for which the gimbal will stay perfectly balanced and the camera won't move. So right now we are in the good position. I'm gonna lock with this screw. Oh, a bit more. Okay, perfect. Second thing that you have to do is to turn the camera in this position and then act on this other screw. This is very important that the camera is also balanced in this position, because to use, for example, the vortex feature where the gimbal turns the camera in a 360 way while we keep it horizontal, I'm going to show you that. This balancing setting needs to be perfect, otherwise the motor will vibrate and the camera will shake. To set up in this position, very similar, we unscrew this screw and we find the right position. You see that if it's too back, it's going to fall and it's going to basically fall back in this position. We have to find the right point for which the camera is going to stay looking upwards. And I think I found it. Sometimes these screws end up in a position that is not so comfortable. What I mean is that it's possible that these screws are like looking outside, but these actually are controlled by a spring and we can turn them without actually unscrewing them. We can just pull down, turn and release to put them in the right position that we want them to stay. Okay, so this axe is actually fine. So I'm gonna lock again this arm here and we go to this one. and we see that this one is pretty well balanced already. To control this axe, we use this other screw, and this one allows to move the camera in this direction. So this one is already fine. Let's see that it goes actually back to position, perfect. I'm gonna lock it as well, and now we're gonna do the last one. To do this, what Zhiyun recommends, let me remove this USB cable that for now we don't need, is that if we put the gimbal in this position, if the camera stays properly, means that it's already balanced. So if not, when you're going to put it like this, you're going to see that the camera is going to move basically quickly in this position or in this other position, and you unlock this screw and you can move back and forth this arm until you find the proper balancing also for this last arm that should be in like this without moving. Perfect. As was saying before, now it actually is very cool that I can move this, pull back and put it a bit more down. So I'm not unscrewing, you see it's blocked, but if I pull, I can reposition it for like a less lower risk of hitting something when it's turning. Like if it's in this position, I'm afraid it will touch the USB cable coming out of the camera. So I just put it down like this. Cool. So the camera is actually now balanced. Just remember to unlock every arm before turning on the gimbal. Gonna turn it on. And here we are. So I'm gonna put it in lock mode. And we're gonna see now the 6 different modes that we can control the way the gimbal turns and stabilize the camera. I quickly wanted to show you how cool are these quick releases for the mini tripod. We can basically move it here for the underslug position in such an easy and quick way. That's amazing. And I'm really happy for the small size the gimbal has. So I tested the gimbal with 3 cameras so far, the Sony A6300, the A7R3, and the Panasonic S1R camera that just came out to the market. I tested a pre-production model, but I was really happy to see that the camera and the gimbal were working very well together for what regards the controls, not so well for the balancing. So let me explain. So the Panasonic S1 and the Panasonic S1R, their software is actually completely and perfectly supported by the Zhiyun Weebill. What it means is that just connecting the gimbal via USB, the feature of starting recording, taking photos, focus, ISO, aperture and shutter speed, they were all working from the gimbal directly. So once we connect the camera, we can control these features and parameters from the gimbal itself or from the smartphone app. The cool and unexpected thing is that the gimbal was working perfectly with a pre-production model, the S1R that I was testing. This means that Panasonic actually maintained the same API that they developed for the GH4 and GH5, and that's a good news definitely for Panasonic owners and for who wants to buy the Weebill gimbal. For the compatibility with Sony, one note, so cameras that have in-body stabilization like the A7R3, the standard cable actually disables that feature. So I'm gonna start connecting it and I'm gonna show you. So let's have a look here. Now we're gonna see that the gimbal is connecting to the camera. You can see here on top that basically a hand to say the stabilization is off. And actually, if you see here on top, where there's the hand symbol, there's also off written there. And that's referred to the fact that with this cable, I don't know why, but it just doesn't work. But Zhiyun just launched a new multi-USB cable that will address this issue. I ordered it, I didn't get it yet, so I couldn't test it today. But the workaround is that if we want to use the sensor stabilization for that added stability, just to refine what already the gimbal is actually doing while stabilizing the camera, is to not use the USB cable. So don't use the controller on the gimbal, but start the recording from the camera itself. In this way, the stabilization will work as is intended to. But I talked with Zhiyun directly about this issue, and they assured me that this cable will fix it. So it's on its way, and I'm gonna give you an update when I get it, if that one works properly with this camera. So I'm gonna connect it, and we're gonna see the features that we can actually change from the gimbal directly. So I turn the gimbal towards you. You see now the ISO here is shown. If I turn the wheel, I can actually change the settings. When I use it for videos, I usually have it in auto mode, so the camera compensates for changes in the lights. Here we can control the exposure compensation, the aperture here, and we can change the shutter speed as well. So it's very cool that we can do this setup here directly on the gimbal. We can also use the central button in this wheel to focus and click it completely to get a photo. Let's start now with the different features that we find directly on the side of the gimbal, and let's go through them. Here on the side we have the main switch between the pan following mode and the locking mode. In the pan following, the gimbal turns the camera in a very smooth way as we turn it on the horizontal plane. The camera doesn't move on the vertical one. So as you see, the camera follows my movement, but without changing on the vertical axis. When we go to the locking mode, the camera is gonna stay in that lock position, so we can turn the gimbal in every position. The camera is gonna be always looking to the position where it was when we locked it. To reposition the camera, we can press the trigger on the back, and while we keep it pressed, the camera will follow now in every direction, up, down, left and right. So we can use this to just put the camera in a particular position, and then we can basically emulate the slider function with this position. For example, we can lock the camera in this position, and then we can smoothly move it like this, like a slider. This button, as you understood, is actually telling the gimbal to make the camera follow our movements, and this also is the following mode that we can recall in every setup that we have currently in the gimbal, or every time we can press this trigger and the camera will start following us in every position. So with this we can do also vertical movements where we want the camera to move up. We have to keep press the button while we do this. The last button that we have on this side is the go button. This activates the phone go mode. In this mode, the camera will follow very fast our movements in every direction. So this is the function that Zhiyun created for activities where we need to move the camera very fast, for example for sport, when we want to pan very quickly, compared to the, no, not this, compared to the pan follow mode, where the camera moves very, very smoothly, but also slowly. So now I was not using the phone go, now we'll press it again, and you see that the camera turns much, much, much faster. So we saw 4 of them. We still have 2 modes. They are controlled by the POV button. So if you press the button twice, the camera goes in vortex mode. So the gimbal goes in vortex mode, the camera goes in horizontal position, and now we can use the joystick for an infinite turn of the camera. So we can do like in the Inception movie and do our video While on this mode, the gimbal will follow our movement in a smooth way. So we can slowly point the camera upwards, and you see that the camera goes up. So it's definitely a very cool feature, and when we want to stop using it, we can just tap twice on the trigger in the back, and this will bring it to the normal position. If we tap 3 times the trigger, we're going to go in self mode, so the camera turns towards us, and we can press 3 times to bring it back to the normal position. If we hit the button POV only once, we go in POV mode, and in this mode the camera will basically follow up to an inclination of 45 degrees, heavy movement. So kind of we turn our head around. I don't know for what to use this mode actually. I think it's pretty cool maybe to do when I want to have a look here. Okay, there's nothing. So this POV mode is actually very similar to what happens when we keep press the trigger to go to follow mode, but this one is much more smooth. So I don't know if you want to do a scene where you look down into something. With this mode, there's a very smooth movement, and also kind of simulating the head inclination on one side and the other. Also here we tap twice and the camera goes back to the normal mode. With normal mode, I mean the mode that we have set up here with the switch. So every time we tap twice, it goes back to the standard position for the mode that we have selected here. In this case, the pan follow. So that's not all. There's still some very cool features that I wanted to show you. Very cool how we can mount a smartphone here. We can lock the position, and this setup allows to move the phone in some different position. We can also close this to like store it, so we can like put it in a less intrusive way, but in this case I will just leave it here, and this allows to put also like an iPhone 8 Plus fits without any issue, becomes very large clamp. I will remove it, and I'm gonna show you how to mount the motor to get focus control directly from the gimbal. So I'm gonna turn off the gimbal, turn off the camera, and I'm gonna show you. So the motor comes on this rail that we have to mount using this guy here. So this is the part that holds that the rail holder is in position, and now we have to mount the motor with this part towards the lens. And to be able to actually have the motor touching the focus ring on the lens, we need this. So we are gonna just put it around the lens. So now there's a small problem. For how I mounted this plate, there's not enough space between the lens and the plate itself. So I think I have to mount the camera, calibrate again, and mount this to put more space between the lens and the plate so we can mount this. I'm gonna quickly do, and I'm gonna be back to you. Okay, actually it's not that bad, because anyway I had to recalibrate once I mount the motor on the plate as well. So let's mount this, and that's it actually. There's not much more to do. It's everything controlled by the gimbal itself. So now I'm gonna lock the arm again to calibrate the gimbal. What I found very cool about this locking mechanism is that we don't need to put the arm in a precise position to lock it. We can actually put it in locking position, then turn until it locks. So I would have expected something that, oh, I have to find exactly that point to block, but no, this is a very cool implementation, and it's like this for every arm. And this one in particular has 2 locking positions. One is this, the working position, the other one is the stored position. that is basically what we do when we want to store the gimbal. I didn't show you at the beginning, so I can quickly do it now. But when we store the gimbal, it takes really no space. It's so cool. So it becomes completely fat. We remove the tripod here. It becomes super small. It fits in the luggage. It fits in the original box that it came with. We can actually fit all the accessories in that box. So it's pretty neat to bring everything around with that original case from Zhiyun. So I'm gonna unlock again to calibrate the gimbal. This is a cable USB-C to USB-C, and it goes here on the front. This to the motor, turn on the camera, and turn on the gimbal. Now, without any configuration, actually we are controlling the motor and we are controlling the focus. As you can see from here, when I turn the wheel, the motor acts on the focus ring, and we can control the focus and do a focus pull directly from the gimbal. Really happy that with this small size, the form factor is really nice, and this feature is fantastic. We can really quickly go in the underslug position. Otherwise, usually to go to that position, we have to flip the gimbal in this position, and not everybody is comfortable to do that. Also because some gimbals actually don't allow to do this very easily. Sometimes they go crazy. So like this, yeah, it went crazy. So it's just cool that we can control this in an easy way. So sometimes actually gimbals don't like to do that. So, and it's very cool that we can go with a click quickly to the underslug position that basically can be held with 2 fingers. Is amazing. Like how the form factor and just this new idea of gimbal from Zhiyun makes things so much more easier. So I'm very happy and surprised about the features of the gimbal, but I'm also very surprised about the build quality of this gimbal. So when I first unboxed it, I was really surprised by the finisher. Look here, this has really surprised me. The mini tripod here, we can push here, and actually there's a small, not really sure how to call it, is a small plug that comes out, and that one is made to lock in position. Sorry. And that one is made to lock in position when mounted on the gimbal, so it doesn't unscrew. There's only one problem. If we use these quick releases for the tripod, these actually don't allow, I mean, this thing doesn't make any sense on them because there's no place for this thing to lock. You see there are some holes, and now if we mount a tripod and we lock it in position, this thing doesn't unscrew anymore. So it was a very good idea. It works if we don't have this additional quick release for the tripod. But this is actually so cool that I don't care, I'm gonna use it. Just make sure that it's properly tightened up, and that should still work fine. There's also a possibility to screw this with a screwdriver in a strong way, so that's a good idea. Just like screw them once and they should be good forever. There's actually no need to remove them. There's something else I want to show you. What I reviewed here is the Weebill in the master package. So what I showed you from that package so far is the focusing motor, this quick like mounting system for the tripod, and I think I showed you half of it. This one comes oh, this is also optional. What we can do with the phone with the Zhiyun app on it is, once we block the phone, this is just a holder. The connection is actually made through Wi-Fi. We connect via Wi-Fi to the Zhiyun gimbal, and there we can control all the options. We can change the different modes directly from the app. We can calibrate the gimbal. We can change the power of the motors. That can be done also directly from here, but we can do from the app. We can do panoramas, time lapses, and motion time lapses, where we can say start from here, end up there, and it will calculate how many steps has to do to move from that position to the final position. The cool stuff is that we can do everything on the gimbal itself. What we can use is actually the live feed. The video can be transmitted to the phone directly, so we can have a feedback of what the camera is seeing. But this actually is also not so needed, because there's another very good thing that I forgot to mention until now, is that Zhiyun made this arm of this motor lower compared to previous gimbals, and that basically we're stopping the view to the back screen of the camera. So now we have a direct view of the screen. There's a small trick if you're using a Sony camera, particularly A7. If by default you have the setup for which, when something comes close to the eye finder, the screen here gets turned on and this one gets turned off. To fix this on, we can actually go and change the settings, but the quick way is just to open like ½ centimeter the screen here, and this will keep this always on and won't use this sensor anymore. So actually I'm very happy to use it without a phone holder. It just keeps it smaller and more compact. I can have perfect feedback of the scene that I'm recording from here. Okay, let's have a look now at the other content of the master package. The master package comes with a nice backpack, very nicely built. I'm gonna now take it and show you what was inside. So let me make some space first. Let's park quickly the gimbal away and make some space for the backpack. So this is the backpack. It's very nice, very well built, very cool design actually, and I also like that it's one of those that you have to open from the back. So this is like anti-theft system, and also I really like because when I'm in the field I just drop the backpack on the floor like this. So if there's like dirt, the place like is not so tidy, so I'm in the outdoors, I prefer to do this and not have like many other backpacks that open on the front, this part on the floor. So the external part stay on the floor, the internal and this part that goes on my back doesn't get dirty. So what we have here, we have laptop, I believe up to 15 inches holder here, and also for documents. And inside, I actually already repurposed this backpack with my 2 drones that fit perfectly here. I have the controllers here, and I have a space here for a camera. Here I have like my drone insurance and like propellers replacement, and the space for the gimbal is actually outside. So this system here, you see, we can actually use this how to call them, like bands, to set up additional components like this that I put here. These are part of the backpack, and I set up this one here for like a water bottle. This one here is actually for the gimbal. That is gonna end up blocked here. So it's a setup mainly, I thought it actually without a camera. I didn't plan to walk around with a camera there, but we can do it if we want. And we can like then block this here. I would still do it without a camera to avoid smashing it around, but so here is the place where I will block my gimbal, and here I put some external accessory. the rain sleeve that also comes with the backpack. And now you should ask, okay, but now it's full of your stuff. What was inside when you got it? Yeah, correct. Let's see what I got. So in the backpack, there was a few cool things. One of those is this mini tripod, mini monopod. Said mini because actually the max length is this. Yes, is this. And can be used actually to hold the base of the gimbal. And what is cool, I quickly remove this. I'm going to show you what this is. I'm going to show you what it is in a second. It comes with a belt that has the same system with this I don't know how to call it in English. It's like this these holes here that we can fix accessory on it. One of those that comes with this package is just a ring that with a small second ring that I put here, and this basically can lock here in place, so we can actually block this monopod on our waist, and we can set up this to hold the weight of the gimbal on our waist. So actually very cool if we are recording for a long time. So if we are recording for a long time, we can actually put the weight on the gimbal and the camera on our body and not only on our arms. This is very cool. What I did, as you can see now from these photos, last week we had a photo shooting in the center of Zurich, and I had to hold for a long time a softbox. So a softbox was attached to this, and you can imagine that it's quite heavy after a while, especially if you're shooting for like a few hours. So the weight was actually very balanced and all on my waist using the Zhiyun belt. So I found a second use for this monopod that is very compact and of the right size. This system here, as I was showing you, keeps block the monopod here in position, so we can actually hold it and leave it hanging from the belt, or we can remove it if we just want to put it on the floor or use it in some other way. And that's what is all part of the master package of the Zhiyun Weebill. I want to make again some space on my table. And I would like to conclude this video showing you that actually everything from this gimbal will fit in the box. And that's it. So you see that everything fits perfectly in the original box. So we can carry our gimbal plus accessory all together. So after this review, I'm really happy to say that this is a perfect gimbal for my needs. For mirrorless cameras, it's perfect size, power and features. The under-slug position, just changing the tripod hold is actually a fantastic idea. What to say? For DSL cameras, I would probably consider more the big brother of this one, that is the Lab 3, biggest gimbal from Zhiyun. And the reason is that even if the motors are actually able to handle bigger cameras, it's possible that they don't balance on the gimbal. That was the case with the Panasonic S1R. I tested a pre-production model and I did some testing with the Weebill Gimbal, and even if the feature like the controls work perfectly, so I could use start and stop recording, changing aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and take photos from the gimbal controls, I could not balance the camera properly. The S1R is very heavy, so on one side I needed some counterweight to balance it. I think that using some counterbalance would make it work perfectly on this gimbal, but I would say that if you want to use such a big camera, probably the Lab 3 is better suited for you. That's it for this review. If you liked it, hit the like button and consider subscribing to not lose future videos, and don't forget to turn on the notification. So that's it for today. See you next time.